Hi, it's Heather. Welcome to another week of From the Minds of Raging Brats. And this is my co host.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I am from Roots and Blooms. I'm excited to share this space with everyone here, especially Heather.
And this is just a part two to our last episode. It really expanded outside of just the friendship conversation. And I think that to do it the best justice, we needed a more fleshed out conversation, which took a little longer. So we just turned it into 2 episodes, and we're glad you could tune in for part two.
I will.
I
Vice
totally
versa.
can relate. I can relate to your relationship struggles too, because that I had a relationship last year, my first one since being divorced.
Yes,
Um, and 9.5 years is a long time to be single.
for
Um,
sure.
and to come from a toxic relationship to coming into a new relationship is a challenge in and of itself. Um,
Okay, for sure.
because you bring all your bad habits with you that you've always known. You're not healed, you're healing. And so
Yeah,
you're barely learning how to navigate your own stuff, let alone a partner's stuff. And
for sure.
my relationship was like good. There was nothing bad about it. And for me being busy and not being able to put a lot of attention constantly into a relationship, the fact that he was a firefighter and was gone like 3 weeks out of the month every month was fantastic, because that way I didn't feel like I was neglecting him. And because he was at work, he wouldn't be feeling like he was being neglected.
Right.
Uh, and when we were together, the time together was good, but like I was not getting my needs met. I don't need a man in my everyday bubble, but if you're my partner, I need to hear from you every single day.
I
And
got you. Yeah.
if you can't communicate with me every single day, then I need to know why. And initially, when the relationship started, it was like that. Like he would tell me, "Hey, I have service right now, but we're headed into the mountains and I won't have service for like 18 hours." And I'd be like, "Okay." And as soon as, and sometimes I'd forget and I'd send him stuff and it would bounce back and tell me this customer's not available right now. Oops, not available right now. But uh, like there was honesty and trust, so I didn't worry. Like I wasn't like, oh, he told me he's going to be out of service for 18 hours. It was just I would forget that it hadn't been 18 hours, send a text and it'd bounce, and I'd be like, oh, okay. But as the relationship progressed, it was like I was putting in more and more to get to the part where the relationship should be blossoming. You should be knowing a lot about each other. We were in a relationship for 4 months. I know he
Yeah.
was a Marine. Towards the end of the relationship, like I knew he was a firefighter. I knew he was a Marine. I knew his name. I knew his age. But like, it was like him saying, I'm going to be leaving for a few months at the end of fire season. I'm going out of state. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean for us? And he's like, I don't know. We'll figure it out then. And I'm like, I I didn't like that, because that's not where I was coming from with him. If something was going on with me, I was upfront and telling him, hey, this is going on, and etc. XYZ. Like, and when he would come back, I would make space for him, to have quality one-on-one time with him. And I'm like, at the end of this, I'm like, I am not getting what I need. And so I poured into my GPT, and it was like, no, this is not. I mean, yes, I get where you're coming from. It isn't a bad relationship, but it's also not a good relationship. And I'm like,
Right.
what do you mean? I'm not getting hit. I'm not getting screamed at. I'm not getting stolen from. I'm not getting manipulated or emotionally abused. Like, what do you mean it's not a
Right.
good
Where's
relationship?
the trip up? Where's the trip up here?
and and it was like, okay, but like you just said, these are your needs. Like you need communication consistent, you need to know more about your partner consistently to be moving towards knowing more about each other and moving towards a future if that's what it's going to be.
For
And
sure. And he's not giving that.
yeah, and I'm like, I know, but like, so
Yeah,
like, so tell me how I can get what my needs met because I like the relationship. And it was like, that's
right.
okay. So you need to have this conversation, but here's the caveat. Like having this conversation means that this relationship could end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And it literally took me 2 months
Gut punch.
2 months to have that conversation. And I edited it and revised it 100,000 times with GPT. Like, I just was like, because I was trying in my own sick and twisted, back to my little unhealed self way, trying to like finagle it into not having the conversation that could end the relationship,
Right.
but still having a conversation.
To it not
And
being that reality that could possibly be uncomfortable. Yeah,
and then
I fully relate to that.
And then the day that I knew the conversation had to happen because he was going to be leaving town, but before that, we were going to see each other and it was going to be like the next day. And I started to like dip my toes in by like giving a little bit of conversation to him. And the answer that I got back let me know that it was probably going to end the relationship. And at that point, I was like, okay, I cannot have this conversation in person. I'm already sobbing my eyes out. So I just copied and pasted my conversation that I'd already created, that I was going to read from, and just put it in a text form. And I added a paragraph before that that was like, I know I said we were going to talk in person, but the reality is that I am so emotional that that would not be healthy for me right now, um, because I have a feeling of where this is going. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but like, here's what I have to say. And then I sent it and he was like, you're not wrong. He's like, I care about you deeply, but this relationship has not progressed the way that either one of us had thought it would. And I'm leaving state in a few days. And I honestly, he was going to Florida. The hurricanes and stuff had just hit. He's from Florida. I found out that day or a few days before
Oh.
that. Yeah, that was
You're like, this makes sense now.
yeah, because honestly, for the first, when he first told me for those 2 months that I was going over this, I literally was like every day waking up, even though I like knew it wasn't true, my brain would not let it go. It was like, he's got a wife and 5 kids. That's why he hasn't said where he's going. He's, he's going to his family and you're just this mistress and you're going to end up finding out that, and it
All these
wasn't any of that.
intrusive thoughts leading the way.
And it was none of that, but at the end of the day I was like, and I appreciate that he cares about me, but that's not enough to be in a
Well,
long-term relationship with someone.
and that's true. Just kind of like how love sometimes isn't always enough, like it and I'm so glad that you guys were able to come to that as a healthy agreement without any kind of like toxicity or anything like that. So it sounds like you guys were able to end it on a rather good note as far as being able to say like, you're right, this space actually isn't what I thought it was going to be. And that's okay. Like, I'm glad that this happened. I'm glad that we got to hold this space together and with each other. But I wish you the best in Florida and I wish you the best here in Oregon. And that's just what it is. But not all relationships end like that. And it does come down to that hard conversation of being able to say, like, hey, my needs aren't being met. And this is what I need, and just being able to hold that trueness to yourself speaks volumes, and it is hard to get to that place to be able to sit in that uncomfortable situation. Whether it's copying and pasting it and putting it into a text or it's actually doing it face to face, it still brings something that you have to have courage to be able to do, because those moments are very hard. Like I said, my partner and I just recently had to have a sit down and sit in that uncomfortable space together. And we both have been on this healing journey together, but mine is a little bit more farther than his is. And so I just have to learn to give grace in our relationship and in certain situations that we have. It's just really about giving grace and learning to give more reassurance. I'm going to be honest. I have had moments where I'm not the greatest person at reassuring my partner. And I have had to learn how to do that more, like I'm not a morning person. Don't talk to me until I've at least had 3 cups of coffee. And like that's just what it is. And my partner is very much a wake up in the morning and we're gonna start our day type of person. And we don't live together, so he'll send me a text message and be like, hey, good morning, I love you. And he knows that I wake up at 6 a.m. Or that's when my alarms start going off, I guess I should say. And he knows that I'm up and moving by 7:30 and that my day's starting, right? But he still will refrain from texting me anymore because I have been like, hey, I love you, but I can't sit like I at first it was I can't send that good morning text until I've had my coffee. And for him, that was like, hey, how come I'm not the first thought on your brain? Because for me, I'm the first thought. And so I send that good morning text as soon as I slide open my phone to turn off my alarm. I'm sending you that good morning, I love you text message. And he's like, so could you just maybe in the morning, I know you slide your alarm over a bunch of times, maybe just send that morning message back, and he's like, I'm not asking for a conversation. I'm not asking for any of that. I'm just asking that you say, hey, good morning. And then you go and you have your 3 cups of coffee and then you come back to me at 10 o'clock in the morning, but it's just acknowledging, hey, I see you. Hey, I love you too. Good morning. My morning just hasn't started yet, and I had to be like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I do touch my phone multiples of times in my morning, and I could just send you that quick message, and but it was just being able for him to have that boundary and say, hey, this is what I need. And for me to be able to say, yeah, I can reciprocate that for you. I understand, and vice versa, there's like multiple things, but that's just an example. We don't have to get all into that.
No, I totally understand that. I read recently that any long-term relationship requires lots of forgiveness and lots of grace to allow for mistakes because
For
we're
sure.
human. Like
Yes.
nobody has a guidebook on how to relation. And if
Yeah.
you have
And
trauma, you have
it's
no
even
idea how to
harder. It's
properly.
Well, and that's the thing too is I know that this is like about friendship, but like my relationship is my biggest friendship in my life right now, and so like we in the 3 years that we've been together, we started at the very bottom. We were both coming out of pretty toxic environments, toxic situations. um and we're basically learning together as things go. We both come from pretty screwy, wonky upbringings that we're both traumatized. Like I'm a traumatized individual, he's a traumatized individual. Sometimes our communication isn't the best, and we both really have to sit with ourselves often and have that check in, and have that check in with each other. And it's like I tell him all the time, you're my best friend before you're my boyfriend. Like, and I just want you to know that, like, whether we're arguing or we're fighting or we're disagreeing, because we don't really fight, we don't really argue, we disagree on things. So let me reiterate that. I'm like, if we're disagreeing on something or whatever, but you're in that moment where you need something, you need me to like give you a hug, or you're dealing with something else in life that's outside of our relationship, like I'm there to support you. I'm there to show up for you. but it's also about being able to speak our truth and being safe and speaking our truth, and feeling like we can be truthful about what we need with those people that say they will show up for us.
Well, and let me
And
be
that's the
clear that
hardest part.
yeah. Well, let me be clear that just because I ended things or we ended things on a good note, it was devastating. Like, was a devastating process. Like, I probably grieved that relationship harder than any relationship in my life, and I've lost a husband. So before, but this was so profound, and I think the reason it was because it wasn't just an ending of a good relationship, but it was also one, he was the first man that ever made me feel safe. Like the very first
and
time I met him, we hugged and I felt safe in his arms that instant.
And I remember you telling me that in conversations before of like how there were moments where it was actually uncomfortable for you because of the safety that you felt in the relationship, because you hadn't ever really felt that from a man or an intimate relationship. I remember we've had multiple conversations on these, and it's just and it was really hard for you to really kind of be in that space at first because of how uncomfortable it is. And what that's something that people don't talk about often enough is how hard it is to go from that toxicity that we're so used to in friendships and relationship dynamics, and then finding that healthy dynamic with somebody.
Yeah.
Like how uncomfortable that space can really be. Like, I have moments in my relationship where I'm like, is this what peace really feels like? Like, this is weird. Like, I'm uncomfortable in this silence and this moment of my life, because why aren't you screaming at me right now? Like, why are we not throwing things at each other and like raising our voices? And it's like, why are you actually meeting me with like, what is this affection that you're trying to give me? And you're trying to do it gently, like you're not trying to do it rough. Like, I
Well,
don't
that was
know.
actually I think that that's actually what kept us from connecting on a deeper level, because when he would see my harder side, like the side of me that worked for the cartel, the side of me that survived all the trauma, when she would peek through, because I was such a soft person with him. Like I can't even explain it, but it was like feeling that energy of safeness envelop me. The moment he was around me, I was soft. I was the submissive side of me in a huge way, the side that I never show the outside world. Um,
Right.
like the side even in the kink side of me that I haven't really explored that much of, because I don't allow that level of vulnerability in my
Right.
life. And I'm like, here I am every single time I'm around him, I'm vulnerable. But then when I do show him my rougher edges, who I've had to be my whole life, he would look at me like, is she a little delusional? And I'm like, if you only knew, dude, that yes, this sounds like my life literally sounds like it should be something out of a fucking comic book or a drama series, but it's
For
not, bro.
sure.
It's
For
really not.
sure. This is my trauma filled life of survival. And here we are today.
And I'm sorry that when my rougher side show out, it's a very big contradiction for you and you freak out, but it is part of who I am. And he would
For
just like,
sure.
it was like we watched like The Expendables one day. And
Oh, that's a good
the
movie.
original movie, The Expendables, is a great movie. But the first time I saw it, like I have this weird thing. I don't own firearms because I have this huge temper that I've always known. Even before I got in trouble with the law and everything, like I never have owned, I've used, but never owned firearms because I know my
Right.
temper. And, but I'm excited by weapons. They excite me in a very sexual, physical way. Um,
I got you.
and so the first time I watched that movie, I saw it in theaters, and it wasn't the greatest thing for those with me because they pull out this big freaking gun that shoots these like missiles that have like samurai stars that are in the back of them as they launch. They open out and everything. I literally, my nipples got erect and I damn near had an orgasm
You're
just right
like,
there in the theater. I was like, I need that gun. And
you're
so,
like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I was in a safe space.
and so we're watching that movie together, and that part comes up, and I'm like, ooh. And he's like, what is happening with you? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I typically am not like this, but when I watch weapons, I have some things about me that when they're big things like that, they excite me. Excite me. And he's just looking at me and he's like, that's when I found out he was a Marine. He was like, you know, I'm a Marine, right? And I'm like, okay. And
You're
and
like, then you should be excited too about these big things.
and he's just looking at me kind of like, I don't know if this chick is full of shit or if she's a little delusional or if she's just trying to impress me. But I think I'm going to go home on that note. But it was like little things like that that when parts of me that weren't the soft, submissive side would show up, he would get uncomfortable.
I got you. Yeah.
And he would get uncomfortable when I would get emotional. Like I said to him one day, you know, because I was just really struggling one week emotionally, and I had like an extra therapy visit on top of my 3 regular visits in a week, and
You were feeling some things. It's all right.
he's like, 4 therapy sessions. And I was like, yeah, well, you know, they say you got to feel him to heal him. And he looks at me and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like confused by that. But then later when he told me about being a Marine, I was like, oh, okay. So you got a lot of trauma. You ain't ready to heal yet, sir. All right. All right. All right. I
For
get
sure.
it.
I see you now. I see you now, my guy.
And that's, I think, when I kind of intuitively, I think probably as things started shifting because I feel energy even if I don't want to.
Oh yeah, for sure. For
And
sure. And that's the thing is like you can't run from energy, right? You just can't. That's something that screams volumes, and that goes back to how do I feel in this moment? You know, like your energy is making me feel that we just shifted here a little. Like
yeah.
maybe I am actually a little too hood for you. My life and your life are not the same in comparison, actually.
Well, and he's a dominant, and I don't think that he truly has ever probably interacted with a true switch. Because we aren't just soft and submissive. We got our fucking hardcore
Yeah.
dom side too. And when that flip switches, because of trauma, we don't always have control of which personality is going to be at the forefront interacting in any given situation. It's kind of you learn when in your trauma how to survive by switching them automatically without even a thought process in it based on the situation. So even though I'm healing, that still applies. Like if I feel any kind of way, or if it is a situation like the movie's drawing out that side of me, like I don't want my partner to feel uncomfortable when I am that way, because I mean, not only do I have the dominant side of me, but I'm also a brat. I mean, like, and
Yeah.
a little. So there's going to be days where you're like, why are you acting childish? Because I'm a goddamn child.
Right. Yeah. I know that's like I love action packed movies. Like that is like it brings me comfort to watch action and guns ablazing and all the things. And so and my partner, and I love scary movies too, but like my partner loves scary movies and things like that. And so like sometimes we'll like get stuck on like what to watch because I'm like, I want action packed all the time. And he's like, you need to calm it down a little. And I'm like, oh, so we always have to compromise between our scary and our action, but it's never any rom com or anything. I have noticed that actually. We don't ever watch any romance. Romance. I'm like, maybe it's because we're both traumatized, but and that's the thing is it's like, friendships and relationships, they're seasonal. And like what I mean by that is like we are all growing and we are all doing our work, and we're all going to change our personalities, our personas, our likes, our dislikes, what we're doing today versus what we're doing tomorrow. Mine and your instance, what we're doing 5 minutes from now could change 5 minutes from now, but it's still that. And it's showing those parts of ourselves to these people that we consider our friends or our partners or whatever that may be, as that relationship is. We're saying, hey, this is me. Take me as I am or leave me as I am. And friendship is saying, I will meet you where you are in any season of your life. It's like I have really bad dissociative identity disorder. And I too have been healing and going to therapy for the last almost 6 years now, weekly, multiple times a week as well. And, I have shown up in a lot of different forms throughout my friendships, throughout my relationships, throughout motherhood. Just in general, I have lots of different versions of me roaming around at any given time. And it takes a strong person to be able to be my friend,
Yeah.
because it takes them understanding that in a flick of a switch like this, I can be something else, and it's like my longest friendship, we've been friends for like 15 years now, and we've gone through births of our children together. We've gone through deaths of family and friends together. We've gone through addiction, recovery. We've gone through so many walks of life together, marriages, divorces, and we've shown up as real and as raw as we can get, because we're like, you're my person. I know that you're not going to judge me. I know that you're just going to show up and be like, I love you who you are. And it's funny because when I told her, hey, I was just given this DID diagnosis, and she goes, I could have told you that, but I love every version that's in there of you, And she's like, some of you's a little bitchy, some of you's a little bratty, some of you's a little feisty and fun, but like, it's fun. Like, that's who you are. You've showed up this way our whole friendship, and it makes sense. Like, does it make sense for you? And I'm like, it makes sense, And she's like, but I want you to know, no matter how you've shown up, I will always love you. And I will always support whoever you are in that moment, wherever you are in that moment, And that's what makes our friendship so great, is because I've done the same for her, like I will show up for you however you need me to to feel supported, and just understanding that we're not going to stay the same. And if we are staying the same, we're not healing. We're not growing. we're not doing the work, because if you're doing the work, we're not staying in the same stagnant spot. Okay. And if you're in a friendship that expects you to stay in that stagnant spot, that's
It's
not
not
your
friend.
friend.
Mm-mm.
No, because they're going to be like, yeah, let's grow together.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've learned too as as I'm healing, I am reconnecting with people that I was friends with in my childhood, which is so
Oh, yeah.
weird because people with BPD typically we don't have long-lasting friendships.
Right.
And I have a combination of BPD and bipolar and a lot of other things. So it's not even and CPTSD and possible autism and ADHD and like I have every
I
card
get it.
stacked against me.
Yeah.
And yet these aren't people that I ever fell out with. I just moved away and we lost touch. And then all of a sudden here I am growing as a person and putting myself out here, like my podcast or my socials are growing as well. I'm starting to do more vlogging and just honest reflecting on life and things I'm learning. And I'm having people that I was friends with 40 years ago are like, hey. And I'm like,
Hey,
hey. And they're like,
I
yeah,
see
we're
what
still
you're doing out
friends.
there. Yeah.
They're like, what's going on? Just because I haven't talked to you doesn't mean I'm not here.
Paying
I
attention.
don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. I see you. And then also, I find myself people that are stuck in my old trauma patterns or those kinds of mindsets. I find that as they even approach me, like the energy feels off, and I'm already putting them in the category of you're going to be an acquaintance, possible friendship, but you're never going to be close friends. You're going to be an outlier. And I look at for friendship criteria now as I make new friends. Can I learn from you? If I can't learn anything from you, I don't need you as a friend. Can you learn from me? If you can't learn anything from me, you don't need me as a friend.
Yeah.
Um, how are you with my trauma? When you see my trauma, are you able to give grace or do you use that against me in every other moment of my vulnerability? And if people are like, I can learn from you and you can learn from me, I'm like, great. So many people are like, why do you, because people of different cultures I have talked to a lot and they are so confused as a white person how the hell I could possibly understand them. Um, because first of all, a lot of different cultures are persecuted. And I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but the reality is I'm a woman. So I do know persecution. I'm a woman that comes from trauma background and poverty. So I know intensive persecution. I know torture. I've been through things that most people can't find humanly possible. Um, and I'm still here. So I need people that around me that are like I said, it's a two-way street, but also I look for people of different cultures so I can continue to learn more about different cultures because I want to keep that empathy and understanding. Um, but also I don't, it's a two-edged sword because people often take that as like, well, if you're trying to understand my culture, it's probably because you want to do harm. And I understand that from a trauma perspective that a lot of people live in this world under the assumption that trauma is going to happen to them at some point
Yeah.
at somebody's hands. But that is also true in our intimate and friendship relationships. And that's why those boundaries are so important. And they're hard to put up when you don't know how to. The guilt that comes with it is immense. The oftentimes the cycle of what my therapist calls self-gaslighting because you've been ingrained to tell yourself you're stupid, you don't know what you're doing, you don't got this, you're a terrible person, you know, you're the always a victim. And these aren't things that you programmed, they're things that your abuser programmed, but now because they're so ingrained, even your subconscious starts spinning that tail the minute something feels uncomfortable. And
Yeah,
it's really hard to be like, hey, brain, stop fucking gaslighting me, because
for
that's not
sure.
accurate.
That's like my partner and I both seem to speak out loud when we're having those intrusive thoughts, and because it's almost like having to talk yourself out of it. Like that's not true. They wouldn't actually do that, or you know, like whatever intrusive thought it may be in your head, like, and just trying to remind that thought in your head of like the we're not in that situation anymore. Like this is totally different. That wouldn't happen here, you know, but your brain is still like, but let me tell you a story. It might.
Do you remember when you let your guard down this time because you said it wasn't going to happen? And then look, do you remember what happened? Do you remember what happened?
No,
That's how
yeah.
that's how my brain works. At least it's like, you think you're going to tell yourself something different? I got a story or
Well,
five.
and it is really hard, you know, having and holding those boundaries and being able to show up and feel like for me it's always been, I feel like if I'm holding a boundary that I'm gonna upset somebody, you know, and that it's gonna create this storm in this little ecosystem of friendship, and then it's gonna explode, and then there's that, you know. And so I have had to learn, like, showing up for myself is literally showing up for my friends and showing up
Mhm.
for my kids, showing up for my partner, showing up for my cat and my dog. You know, it's taking my truth and saying, hey, I deserve to be heard, you know,
Mhm.
and seen and all of those things. And when we're in friendships that we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard, we don't feel loved, you know, we start to question ourselves. We start to have this self-doubt play on us because we're doing everything right. I'm pouring into their cup. I'm showing up for them. I'm doing these things. Why can't they do that for me? You know, and then you just get this self-image in your head. But it's really those people that can't show up for you. It's not that they can't show up for you. They can't even show up for themselves. You know, and when you can't show up for yourself, you definitely cannot show up for anybody. Whether you tell yourself you can, let me tell you, you cannot. Like, we cannot actually pour from an empty cup. And that's why we get burnout. That's why we drain ourselves. That's why we get depressed. That's why we stay in our bed. That's why we freaking can't take a shower. Like, because we're constantly pouring into people's cups in every interaction that we have, whether it's we're at the grocery store and we're out shopping, every interaction is pouring from our cup, you know? And it's like if you aren't recharging your batteries at the end of your day, the end of your week, at the end of your month, you're gonna become burnt out. And these friendships and showing up for yourself will feel harder
Yes.
because if you're not refilling yourself back up, like you're never going to fill up. You know, it's like I take the time to sit with myself often. I do self care treatments. I do all these things because it's like, you know, I've set these boundaries like within my relationships and stuff of like during the week, I'm not going to meet up with you. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to do that because I have to be a mom. I have to be a business owner. I have to do these things. Like I have to show up in ways in my life that I don't have the opportunity to actually give 100% in my friendship or my relationship because I'm pulled in so many directions Monday through Friday. You know, like it's like you mentioned, like I have a lot of things going on. Like I own a business, I run my business solely, like I am just building up a new brand. I'm actually building up 3 new brands right now. One of them being like a clothing line. And so like I just am constantly pulled in all these directions that I literally had to sit down with myself this past week while I was sick in my bed and be like, what is not working here? Because why am I sick in my bed for 7 days, super sick, and like something's got to give? And I really had to take that time to sit and be like, oh, because I'm not actually pouring into my cup. I didn't spend any of March pouring into my cup. I didn't do self care baths. I didn't tell myself I loved myself. I didn't do any of these things. No wonder I feel drained. No wonder I feel like I can't give to my partner or my kids or whatever it may be, because I have to do it for myself, like, and it starts with yourself to be healthy, to show up healthy, to get healthy individuals, to be like, hey, I see you. I am you, and then you show up for each other. I agree on the, if I can grow from you, if I can learn to like, if I can learn something from you and you can learn something from me, those are huge assets, like what if you don't bring anything to my table spiritually or mentally, like I just can't. Why?
Same.
I have plenty of things on my plate already. So it's like, if you're not helping me thrive to be a better plant and blossom more, and you're going to just hold me back, then we don't even need to like entertain the idea of having a friendship, like my first questions I always ask are like, how do you show up for yourself? Because that is going to determine how you're going to show up for me as a
Mhm.
friend, is how you show up for yourself. And it's like I said, I think I have like 5 close people in my inner circle that like I genuinely feel like I can share anything with. And then anybody else that may be in my life are all pretty much just little acquaintances or people, it's like Facebook, for instance. I have like 100 friends or whatever, and I know them all personally, but it's people from high school. It's people that I haven't talked to in so many years, but I'm watching their life, right, unfold on Facebook. I get to see their families, I get to see their pregnancies, I get to see the death, I get to see all these things, but that's just me sitting on the outside lines. Hey, I'm rooting for you. Hey, I'm sorry that death happened. Hey, whatever. But then I have my deeper connections where if something is happening, I'm sitting in that ER with them. I am sitting in that funeral home with them. I am there physically holding their hand. Where these acquaintances that I'm seeing on Facebook or whatever, it's like, hey, I kind of know what's happening in your life, but I don't know what's happening in your life. I can make some assumptions, but also I'm not going to do that until you tell me what's happening. And so there's definitely differences between friendships as far as level goes. And it's like, cool, like I know you from high school, like all my friends that I have on my friends list that are from high school are people that really helps me in my struggle. Like I have lived on my own since I was 14 years old. And if it weren't for these friends, I would have ended up dead in a ditch somewhere. It was because of these friends and their parents offering me a couch or a floor or a ride or food or whatever it may be that have led me to my successes of where I'm at today. But we're not close like we used to be. We don't talk every day, but I am so thankful for them that obviously I have them on social media because I'm proud to call them my friend. And it's not that we had this huge falling out, it's just life. Life happens. We all have a different story. We all have a different path. Every day we're going through something. And so I'm a full on show up as you can type of friend without expectations.
I feel that. I also have a friend on my social media, not from high school or anything, but that saved me when I first started out on the streets on my own at 12. And to this day, my mom and my stepdad hate him with a passion. Because when we get down to the nitty gritty, uh, if you just look at it from the black and white facts, you would not know the situation. So you would just be like, oh, he's a pedo.
Oh, I
Um,
got you.
because I
But
was
really, he was
12.
saving you. He
I
was
was
saving
12.
you.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I was 12. He was 23. He didn't know I was 12 until I had been with him for like 6 months and we got arrested together. And then he was like, what?
Oh, oops.
Because he was 23. But, I didn't look 12 by any means. I mean, I didn't even get carded in my first bar until I was 21, which just pissed me off, actually. I
Right? You're like,
literally
this
was
is
like,
annoying.
I was like indignant. I was like, so at 13 you were serving me and now you want my fucking ID?
See the problem here.
So yeah, I was a little irate with getting carded, but see, for me, I don't see him in that light. Looking at it from a mom's perspective, if my 12-year-old was ever with a 23-year-old, I'd probably be in orange right now. But and they'd be wearing dirt. But that's beside the point. He didn't know he was with a minor. I didn't look like a minor. I didn't act like a minor. At that point, I had been so physically, sexually used and abused by many adults that sex for me was nothing. And,
Yeah.
and it was like, okay, you're going to feed me and give me a roof. I have sex. That's what I have to offer. And he was like, I don't just want sex. I want a relationship with you. Like, I want the whole picture. And I want to build that with you. And I was just like, dude, I get that, like, you saved me, but like, we live in a van.
Oh,
And
yeah, you're like
we
different.
eat government pudding often for breakfast. Like, I mean, this isn't my dream.
Right.
Um,
This is a stepping stone to get somewhere.
but I still keep him like on my socials and stuff because he was a person in my life, regardless of whether I'm the one that provided the false pretense starting the relationship or not. He was a person that saved me at a time that I needed saving, didn't abuse me, didn't use me, took care of me and provided for me when nobody else would.
Yeah.
So like, and to be honest, even with everything I'd been through and as mature as I was at 12 years old, like I was scared shitless on the streets. Like
For sure.
every minute of every day was like, okay, somebody that has hurt me before is going to see that I'm on the streets. They're going to snatch me and nobody will ever see or hear from me again. I just know that's what's going to happen in my life.
For
Like,
sure.
and
Living on guard literally 24/7 and not knowing what the next hour could even be like. It's like my son just turned 13 and he's over here like, I'm an adult. And I'm over here like, I was literally living on my own, doing the worst things in survival mode to make sure that I could survive and not get left and forgotten on the streets in the world. And I'm like, you can't even do the dishes when I ask you, my guy. Like, we are not the same. Like,
no, I now wear a shirt. I got a Gen X shirt that I wear a lot around my kid because it says raised on hose water and neglect. Because I'm like, every
yeah.
time he's like, that's not my job. Like, vacuum the house, kid. That's not my job. I'm like, did I ask you to do it?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. Then it's your job. And he's like, you just want child slavery. Listen, I work, I work, I work, I work. I take care of you, work, take care of you, work, take care of you. Sometimes get a little sleep. I
For
need help with
sure.
the house. I am not doing everything on my own. You are not a baby. Get your butt
And
up. That is
holding
not slave labor.
And holding boundaries with a teenager or any type of child is next level, because you're like, I said do this.
Can I be honest and tell you that that is actually how I've gotten through most of my guilt with setting boundaries? Is when I start to feel guilty, I'm like, if you set this boundary with your child, would you feel guilty? And I'm like, fuck no. I'd be like, this is your fucking boundary. What? This is for your
Yeah,
own good. I'm not here to do this to make my life miserable. Thank you. And then it's like,
for sure.
okay, then I set the boundary and I don't feel like the guilt will start to climb up, but I get that like mom attitude in, and it's like the guilt just goes right back away. It's like, this is for your own good, dummy.
For sure. You're not understanding right now. You're not understanding. I
But that's actually a
know.
really beautiful thing, because not only, I know this episode was primarily about friendship, but re- intimate relationships also include friendship, but they're also on a different level of dynamic that makes it more complicated than just friendship.
For
And
sure.
your relationship with your children is kind of where your friendship relationship as an adult anyways really starts to grow, is as a parent, because then you're looking at what you want for your kids, and then if you're healing and growing, you're self-reflecting on that as you go, and it's like, oh, if I want this for my kids, what the fuck, why don't I want it for me?
For myself, I know. And that's like one thing that I've really, I obviously I'm in the middle of breaking cycles as somebody who grew up in a very traumatic lifestyle and household. um I obviously don't want that for my kids. I got clean for my kids. I completely like 360'd my entire way of living, to try to be the best person I could be, so I could be the best parent that I can be. And my kids teach me something every freaking day about myself, I feel like. And that is it. It's like, for instance, my relationships is, I'm like, I was in a pretty bad I've been in a lot of pretty bad relationships where I was abused, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, I was abused.
Financially,
And yeah, financially, any sense of that word that you can think of, I have been through it. And my kids have seen that. And my last relationship before the one that I'm currently in was extremely toxic. Like, we were locked down together through COVID. My kids witnessed some pretty fucked up shit. Like, it was traumatizing. Sorry about my language, but reality of
no,
painting that picture.
don't
And
apologize.
it's, I really had to sit with myself and do that self reflection of like, would I want my child to be in this position? My children are both boys, and I don't ever want my children to think that it's okay to put their hands on a female the way that they have seen people put their hands on me. I don't want. There's just so many things that I don't want for my children that I am like, okay, yeah, let's take this little petal off this flower, because that's not right. And then let's put a different petal in there, because now I have to relearn and develop all these new skills and stuff, which I've done for like the last 6 years and now I have all these good, healthy things, right? But it comes from like, I don't want my kids to go through that. I want my kids to have good examples, and that starts with me. I am the example. I literally am the example, and everything that I go through in my life is an example to my kids. And so that's kind of why I became a boundaries coach and things like that, is because for the longest time in my life, I didn't know what boundaries were. I was like, go ahead, I'm a doormat, do your worst. bring your muddy issues, um and one day, like I said, my last really toxic relationship was about 4 years ago. And, it took a lot of self reflection to be able to leave that relationship and to stick up for myself and build that courage and make that plan to be able to leave. And now that I am out of it and I'm 4 years out, I am just like, my boundaries are so strong. You are not getting past those guys. And if you do, then that's a fucking problem in me, not you. you know. But no, friendships are definitely, I think, built on boundaries, love, and just the understanding of like life happens. You're gonna show up or you're not gonna show up, and if you're not gonna show up, then you're not a healthy friend.
Right. And unfortunately, that is often the case when you're coming out of healing before you learn to set boundaries. But that is all the more reason why it does make boundaries bridges that connect healthy people.
For sure. It's like, I think if you and I would have met at a different point in our life when we were both unhealed, we probably would have very much stemmed off of our traumatic experiences and the way that we react to our trigger responses. But luckily, we are in a dynamic of life where we're both healing, and we are able to show up for one another, and we have always given that space of grace and just like show up as you are, and I'm gonna love you, and that's something that I cherish so much about our friendship. It's just the fact that when we come together, it's a completely non-judgmental space. Like, I know I'm safe here. I know that you're safe here, and it all just lays itself out when we're together. And I always feel so full after we get to spend time together, and I've never had to be like, oh, is this an uncomfortable dynamic? No, because from day one, it was always been encouraging. It's always been, I support you. This is who I am. This is who I am. We support each other. I'm going to show up for you. And we've proven that time and time again, and we live a couple 100 miles away from each other, but it's still that, hey, I'm here anytime you need me. And we both know that. And so,
Well,
like, I just love you. I just love you for that. It's kind of like how this whole podcast thing came along. I was just scrolling through Facebook and I saw that you were like, "Yeah, I need a co-host," and I'm like, "Hey, I might be up for that actually."
and I was so
Like,
grateful because you and one, like my adopted daughter, were the two people that I really had in mind for it. Um,
oh, okay.
when I put the post out anyways, like you were the two people that I was thinking of because one, my daughter has some interesting perspectives on other things, but you and we have very similar stories, so we understand each other in a lot of ways, but we're also so unique in our approach that, like, I'm always taking inspiration from your journey. Like, I see you. And then on top of that, I remember like our online relationship, how we met online and everything has always been great. But I remember the first day we met in person and we just sat on your kitchen floor for hours, like two kids that had known each other since birth.
I know, and it's always felt like that. I don't feel like I ever really met you. It was just we showed up in this space and I was like, I know you. Like, I feel like I've known you in this lifetime and probably other lifetimes before this because of the comfortability that it was. Because you're right. We literally did just, oh, next thing you know, everybody's like, oh, we got to get going. I mean, you are both like, what? We just got here. What are you talking about? And they're like, it's been like 10 hours. And we're like, no, it has not. You're breaking my heart right now.
I
Just
know.
stop talking.
I know. And Honestly, to be honest, it was kind of cool too to meet you at the time that I did, because it was in that really hard relationship.
In that very toxic relationship dynamic, for sure.
And I also still had my ex very much in every aspect of my life, which was also a very toxic situation for me, which I mean, sometimes still is a little bit, but at least there's boundaries and space now that help with that. But co-parenting is always going to make boundaries a little bit difficult and harder than.
Oh my gosh, and boundaries with the co-parent, that's the hardest freaking one. That's like my biggest boundary that I have in my life is the boundary with my co-parent, because if not, they're going to walk all over me. They're going to think that they're in charge. They're going to think that they get to say how it is. They're going to think that they hold the freaking power. And I'm like, guess what, buddy? I hold the power. Let me tell you. Let me tell you, my boundaries are not what they were when we made this child years ago.
Mine either. And I'm like, listen, those that wanted the old me can go find her, because she ain't here anymore. The old
For
me was
sure.
integrated as part of who I am, but it ain't her holding the reins. And let me tell you, when I say I mean this, that's why I have this legal paper behind me at this point, because I'm not playing games, the childhood games of tit for tat or back and forth. It's like, we can do this the way that is healthy for our child, or I can do this the way that's healthy for my child.
For sure, 100%. I totally understand that. Well, and it's like that's the one thing that I feel like we can take into every relationship or friendship or anything is like just holding true to you, and no matter what, because we do meet sometimes we meet people that we've already met in the past in other people, and it's that little door to see if you really have learned that lesson or not, and it's like how you show up in that situation shows if you're healing or not. And it's like, no, my co-parenting relationship, I definitely learn often that I have grown and am growing in a big comparison to where they are at. But I don't know. I'm thankful for every friendship I've ever had, whether it's been good or it's been bad, because every person that has ever come into my life has either taught me something, whether it's a lesson, it is a trial or a tribulation, it's something about myself. Um, it was something that taught me something. And so I'm very thankful for any friendship I've had, whether it did me harm or it brought me good. It's just there's any piece of advice I could give anybody, it is just be true to you, because your people will see you and they will show up for you and you'll know, because like Heather said, we just knew when we very first met each other for the first time in person. We knew, our souls knew this is a safe person, and there's never been a question about that. And if you ever have a moment where you're sitting with somebody and all you're feeling is anxiety in that situation with that person, listen to your body and take the steps to protect yourself, whether it be, having that hard conversation or just completely ending that relationship or friendship or whatever it may be. But all of our relationships in life start at friendship. And that's where it is.
I think with that, I have some closing thoughts, and then we'll wrap this episode. Friendships rooted in love can survive distance, silence, even chaos, but only when there's clarity, grace, and boundaries. That's what we need to remember. Now, for the audience, ask yourself, what boundaries do you need in your friendships? Which relationships have respect for you or show you how to respect others and yourself? Very important. And is there a place where love could feel safer if the lines were clearer? These are questions to ask yourself when you're in a relationship, just to get to the core root of, is this a relationship for me, or is this something that I should walk away from, even if it is somebody you love? It isn't always going to be blessings, but every act in life is either a lesson or a blessing. That's relationships, that's experiences, that is everything in life. We tend to forget that in the hustle and bustle of life, that we are our own people that have to start with this. Like, we've talked a lot about pouring into the cups, and I know a lot of people in the audience might not necessarily jive with that analogy. I know in therapy they use spoons. Every day you have so many spoons, and some people start out with 1,000 spoons. Some people only start out with 3 spoons, and their 3 spoons are just enough to get them out of the bed to not piss or shit in their bed. I mean, for real, logistically and literally. Sometimes life is really hard and you can't pour into others, and you can't even pour into yourself. But if you have friendships that are rooted in love and boundaries with clarity and consistency, they're always going to show up for you in your hardest times. They're going to show up for you more in your hard times than in your winning times, because they're going to know that while they're happy for your winning times, you don't need them there to cheer you on. It's nice, but it's not needed. But they're also going to know that in those times where all you can do is make it from the bed to the toilet and back, that they have to be that extra support. And whether that's you or them that shows up for the other, it should always be reciprocal. It should always be centered and focused in self-love first and love for your friend second. I think with that, we're going to do our close. All right. And on that note, folks, I think we're going to close it up, and we will have our little that's a wrap on this episode from the Minds of Raging Brats. Huge loving gratitude to my guest co-host, Brittany, and I love everything that you bring to this conversation. It's just been a really refreshing time.
I have loved this conversation. It definitely expanded way farther than I anticipated it. So I'm just super glad that we're able to break this down for everybody. So everybody can know what to look for when you're looking for your friendships and you're looking into yourself. Remember, we grow what we go through.
Yeah, I just love everybody here. So until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and as always, rage responsibly.